My husband and I were lucky in a way. At the beginning of our family life, we didn't have to think about buying a place to live, save money, or get into debt. I can't say that we are both from rich families, but neither of us have ever experienced a shortage of funds in our lives. Of course, we should thank our parents for this. After the wedding, we began to live in a one-room apartment that I inherited. I was still a student then. I had one more year of study at the university, and this apartment was right next to my university. I had another two-room apartment at my disposal. I rented it out to tenants. After graduating from university, we moved into a three-room apartment that belonged to my husband's parents. They moved into the house, so the apartment was empty. We were expecting a baby, so the question of expanding our living space arose. At first, we planned to move into my two-room apartment, but my in-laws suggested that we live in their apartment. At first, I was happy about this. I liked my in-laws' apartment. It was bright and spacious, but the area it was located in could hardly be called good. My husband and I decided not to dwell on the bad and moved into this apartment anyway. We did some renovations and designed a nursery for our child. Over time, I realized that we had probably been hasty. The area really was unfavorable. My mother-in-law and father-in-law had gotten used to it, but I was afraid to even go out for a walk alone with my child. Some people in an incomprehensible state were constantly sitting in our yard. Swearing was heard in the evenings, and there were often fights. Of course, I wanted to move to a calmer and quieter place so that I could let my child go for a walk in the yard without worry. But our savings were not enough yet, and we categorically did not want to get into debt. We began to consider the option of moving to my two-room apartment, where we wanted to live initially. But then we found out that I was pregnant again. It would have been too crowded for us with two children and a dog, so we decided to leave everything as it was. One incident that happened not long ago completely changed everything, and I firmly decided that I would not stay in this house anymore. My husband went on a business trip for a week, and I was left alone to run the household. He had had to leave us for a few days before, but my mother or mother-in-law came to help us, and this time I had to stay alone for a week. It didn't bother me at all until one of our neighbors got drunk and started knocking on our door. I was terribly scared, called the police. They calmed him down, but this incident happened again. As I already said, my husband was away. I was alone with the children and was afraid to leave the apartment once again, so as not to cross paths with this inadequate person. At that moment, I firmly decided that we would not stay here anymore. My husband did not try to dissuade me. He supported my decision. "If it will make you feel better, let's change your place of residence," he said. My husband's parents also supported us when we told them the news. My mother-in-law gave the go-ahead to sell their apartment, and we also decided to sell my two apartments. It seemed that everything was going perfectly. We sold my apartments quickly. They are both located in a good area. Both are in good repair, so buyers were found for them faster. My husband's parents' three-room apartment took a little longer to sell, but a buyer was found in the end. We were going to buy a three-room apartment in a more prosperous area of the city and a one-room apartment in a new building. According to our calculations, we should still have a good amount left for repairs. Then my mother-in-law began to make her own adjustments to our plan. "If you want us to give you the money from the sale of our apartment, then Rita should give up her share in the new apartment. The new three-room apartment should belong only to our son," she said. My mother-in-law added that her son brought me to a three-room apartment after the wedding, so he should have a three-room apartment if we suddenly decide to get divorced. I was taken aback by such a statement. I reminded my mother-in-law that I also had apartments, and I invest the money from their sale in joint housing, and I do not intend to invest my money in real estate, to which I will then have no relation. My husband was rushing between me and his mother. Moreover, my mother-in-law began to stir up trouble at the wrong time. We had already concluded a preliminary deal with the owners of the new apartment, and in case of refusal, we would have to pay a deposit in double the amount. It seemed that the ideal solution would be to simply not take my mother in law's money and just buy a 3 room apartment from the sale of my apartments. But then it would turn out that I would buy housing only with my own money, and my husband would not invest a penny. Again, it turns out that I find myself in a disadvantageous situation. It turns out that my husband's parents first promised us money from the sale of the apartment, and we were counting on this amount. And now some new and not entirely clear demands are starting, which were not even discussed before. I've been racking my brains for several days, but I still don't see a way out. Sometimes I think that it would be better to live in the old apartment, even if it's a bad area and inadequate neighbors, but at least then everything would be good in the family. And now it feels like everyone is ready to tear each other's throats out over real estate, honestly.